What's up guys, Asian here again with another theory crafting video, and today we're going to be going over the Briarheart set versus the Hunding's Rage. So that's kind of two sets that kind of have commonly been discussed back and forth as to which one is better. So this question was raised by LRP, one of our viewers, and so he kind of reminded me that there's this discussion about which one's better, Briarheart or Hunding's. And so there's always kind of a back and forth. There's always a camp that says Briarheart's better, and there's a camp that says Hunding's better. So hopefully today we'll be able to put this discussion to rest and finally figure out which one actually is going to be better. So for those of you guys who don't know what the sets that I'm talking about, this is Briarheart. It comes from Hrothgar, which you need. So you need the Arsenium DLC in order to get Briarheart. It is an overland set, the medium armor. It has weapon crit, max stamina, weapon crit as the 2, 3, and 4 piece effect, and for the 5 piece effect, when you deal critical damage, you have a 10% chance to increase your weapon damage by 449 for 10 seconds. While this effect is active, your critical strikes kill you for 609 health. This effect can occur once every 15 seconds. So a lot of people have been saying that Briarheart beats out Hunding's. So this is an example of Hunding's. It has weapon crit, max stamina, weapon crit, basically identical to Briarheart, and then the 5 piece adds a flat 299 weapon damage. So the argument for Hunding's is that this is a flat damage boost, and it doesn't require you proc anything. It's not a proc chance, so you're always going to have 100% uptime on 299 weapon damage. Versus Briarheart, which has a theoretical 66% chance uptime. So in order to in order to get the actual uptime on this, you basically need to multiply 449 by 0.66. Let me do that real quick for you. 449 times 0.66, and you get 296 weapon damage effectively. So if you get 100% uptime on Briarheart, which is actually going to be 66% uptime on Briarheart, you lose out to Hunding's Rage by 3 weapon damage. It's very small, and you do get that additional heal with Briarheart, so that kind of offsets that 3 weapon damage difference, but technically Hunding's Rage is better for DPS. However, that's just looking at if you're keeping Briarheart or Hunding's on the body piece, basically if you have that 5 piece effect active at all times. What people are saying though is, what if you are using weapons instead? Because for Hunding's, because it is a flat effect, it's not a proc set or anything like that, it's only going to be active while you're on your dual wield bar. However, Briarheart, if it procs on your dual wield bar and you swap to your back bar, that damage actually continues to tick on your back bar as well, compared to Hunding's Rage, where you actually lose out on that weapon damage boost. So proponents of Briarheart are saying, well, no, of course Hunding's beats Briarheart when you always have the 5 piece up at all times. But if you have Briarheart on your weapons instead, now that's where things get a little bit more tricky, because Briarheart, that proc carries over, but Hunding's does not. So that's what we're going to be doing today. We're going to be testing out Briarheart weapons versus Hunding's weapons. So our 5 piece is going to switch. So we're going to be able to see whether or not Briarheart or Hunding's is better. We'll be pairing this with Vicious Ophidian, so this is kind of a best case scenario. Basically, you are the lucky stamina DPS that gets to deck himself out with all damage sets. So I'm going to need to swap out to the Warrior Wonderstone. I actually don't know if I have it on the PTS. So I'll just buy it and place it. So that's what we're going to be testing today. So everything's going to remain exactly the same. I am on my stamina DK, but whatever stamina class you decide to pick, it actually shouldn't matter ultimately which one you do. These results should stay constant across all classes pretty much. We'll be doing these on the 3 million dummy just to save time. We will be going with the standard Nirn with the double ravage health bow, in Nirnhone poisoned axe, and infused weapon damage dagger on the offhand. Like I said, we're going to be keeping 5 piece Vicious Ophidian as our 5 piece set that we always maintain, along with 2 piece Veldreth, and we're going to be swapping out Briarheart for Hunding's, and that's going to be our comparison point there. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get started with this parse. Now, the one bad thing about Briarheart is that Combat Metrics doesn't record it very accurately, in that it doesn't actually accurately measure the uptime on Briarheart, so we won't necessarily be able to use Combat Metrics to determine our uptime on Briarheart. Now, I have already done parses for both. I have done several parses, so we'll be able to compare averages. That's just to help even out the RNG involved with crit chance. If you guys are hearing that little chirping noise, that is the indication, the audio cue that Briarheart has procced. The little chirping noise is the healing effect. There's a slightly harder to hear crinkling effect. That's the actual proc for Briarheart. So there we go. That is the first of our Briarheart parses. We managed to get 36,617. I just need to put this down on our spreadsheet here. 36,617. Now we're going to swap over our gear to Hunding, so boots, bracers, belt, our weapons, axe, and dagger. We have our ultimate up, so let's go again. So remember, because Hunding's is our dual wield on our dual wield bar, we're losing out on the 299 weapon damage when we swap to our bow bar, and that's the argument for Briarheart. Because the proc from Briarheart carries over to our back bar, but the Hunding's weapon damage boost does not. And just thinking from it logically, you know, it makes sense that Briarheart would win out in this kind of scenario. The question is, you know, does it actually, and if it does, by how much? Alright, so there we go. That is our Hunding's parse. We pulled a very respectable 37,802. Oops. I left my trap out for a little bit too long there, but no matter. So here's our comp metrics parse for the Hunding's parse, 37,802, and for our Briarheart parse, 36,617. So if we take a look here, we can see this is why comp metrics isn't very good for measuring Briarheart uptime, because it says we have a 90% uptime on Briarheart, even though the maximum uptime is actually 66%. So whether or not it's because Briarheart is bugged or comp metrics is just being stupid, who's to say? I don't code, I don't do LUA code, so I can't tell you either way. But that's kind of why combat metrics isn't very good for measuring Briarheart uptime. So now moving over to our parses. So just based on these two parses alone, it seems like Hunding's wins out. But you know, there are RNG factors involved, like crit chance and things like that. So that's why we do multiple parses like we have here. So the left side is Hunding's. We have 6 parses here. The right side is Briarheart, 6 parses again. And these are our averages. So we can see Hunding's does lose out to Briarheart by about 100 DPS, which is about a quarter of a percentage point. There is a little bit higher spread with Hunding's, because we do have 37,000 parses with a couple of 36,000 parses sprinkled in. Briarheart has less of a spread. It's a little bit more consistent here. We don't see anything above 37 here, but again, this is potentially due to the RNG factor of crit hits. So that's why we did several parses to get an average here. So we can see here that Hunding's still loses out to Briarheart by a very, very small margin. It's 100 DPS, which I would probably pretty much say that's within margin of error. So if you're using the 5-piece effects on your body, in other words, if you're always going to have that 5-piece Hundings or 5-piece Briarhearts, then Hundings will typically win out because it's hard to get that 66% uptime on Briarheart, and even if you do, you still lose out by 3 weapon damage. The heal is nice though, so it's still a good set to use if you do want to use Briarheart instead of Hundings. It will cost you, but you kind of have to ask yourself, is it more expensive to get the mats to get someone to craft Hundings or to craft it myself, or is it cheaper just to purchase Briarheart instead and take like a 0.1% DPS loss? And even you can see here with our Dual Wield bar, if you put Briarheart or Hunding on your Dual Wield bar, so you lose out on the 5-piece bonus when you swap to your bow bar, the difference is still pretty small, I'd say within, like I said, margin of error. So again, it's kind of a question of, is it worth farming for the materials or buying the materials to craft CP160 Hunding's gear, or just buy the Briarheart gear straight up and then just upgrade it from there. So that's kind of what question that you have to answer for yourself. Plus that Briarheart heal is a nice self heal. It's a small heal, 609, but it's whenever you crit. And stamina classes typically have fairly decent crit chance, so you will get that heal fairly often. If you couple the Briarheart with something like a Stamsork running Surge, or even a Nightblade using their siphoning attacks, I believe it is, or leeching strikes. It's a very constant source of healing, which is very nice for your survivability. So Briarheart definitely does have a place in the stamina DPS meta, in the fact that it does provide a very nice DPS boost. It's comparable to Hunding's, I'd say. Plus, it gives you a nice self-heal. The downside is, of course, if you want to farm it yourself, you need access to the Orcidium DLC, or you need to be able to shell out the money in order to purchase it off of guild traders. So that's kind of the only downside of Briarheart, and you also can't find it in Nirnhoned weapons, so you have to transmute it into a Nirnhoned, which means you have to learn Nirnhoned for axe or dagger, whichever one you want to do. So that's kind of a downside of Briarheart, but in the end, you can use either one of them. It doesn't really matter. They both seem to pull about the same DPS. So that's it for this video. Hope you guys found it informative, and I will see you guys in the next dungeon.